We are live. Hello. We've got a few people here logging on. Thank you for your prayers, guys. I'm feeling fine. So I woke up 2 nights ago with a fever, and I haven't had a fever since I had swine flu, which during the whole swine flu craziness, I lived in New York and I got the flu that summer, and so I haven't had a fever since then, and I had one the other night, but I feel fine. But besides that, I'm a little bit congested, but have my taste and all of that kind of stuff. So thank you for your prayers, though. We'll get started in just a minute. All right. So I'm going to reveal my guest here. This is Sal, and I'll let Sal introduce himself in just a moment. But the reason why I wanted to do this conversation, I don't know if people that are watching right now read Reformation Charlotte, but Sal had sent over an article from Reformation Charlotte about what's been going on with him and all of that, and I thought it was so crazy. So I just asked him a few questions about the situation, and he answered them, and I thought, this is something that we need to let people know about what's going on. So I'm sure there'll be things, Sal, that you don't want to talk about, or maybe not don't want to, but can't. But we'll just get to the bottom of whatever we can here, and I'll kind of give you the floor a little bit. But Sal, why don't you introduce yourself? You're not just some random guy, or maybe you are.
It's nice to think of myself as just a random guy. I've been a part on and off of McLean Bible Church for 38 years. And so, but I'm a Christian. I profess the evangelical faith with kind of reformed leanings, but because I had a Presbyterian background, by profession, I'm a molecular biophysics researcher. I'm published in the secular venues, and I teach apologetics. I'm a creationist. I'm YouTube's #1 YouTube creationist. And my life story is in the prestigious scientific journal Nature, the cover story, in a very secular venue, April 27th, 28th, 2005. So, but I think the most meaningful thing I've ever done in my life is I took care of my widowed and disabled mother, according to 1 Timothy 5:4, for 18 years after my dad died. In the last 7 years, while I worked from home, I took care of her 24/7. She passed away this past April. And it's kind of interesting that I had a dual membership at Occoquan Bible and McLean Bible. And the elders at McLean Bible said, when your mother passes, you have to return to McLean. And I've returned, and then I got kicked out.
Sure.
So that's a little bit of my story. I had a time that I nearly left the Christian faith about 20 years ago, and it was my study of science that brought me back. I have 5 science degrees, including a Master of Physics from Johns Hopkins University. It is my study of science that brought me back, and so that's how I got involved in Christian apologetics and research. While Mom was the last 7 years of her life, as I said, I worked from home. I worked for a world famous geneticist who was an atheist and became a Christian, and I did research for him. And so now I'm not doing so much. I'm still doing research, but I'm not doing outreach. So a lot of our outreach was to like PhDs, and only 30 people on the planet understood what we were writing. So my involvement in McLean's kind of an oddball, because I'm not really like I'm not the most public site personality like UAD. So you don't have to worry about any competition from me. You've got the charisma. I'm probably the most plain vanilla guy you'll ever meet. So thank you for having me on.
Let me just stop you for a second, Sal. So you've got a number of science degrees. You were taking care of your mother when she was widowed. You're a churchman. You were submissive to your elders who wanted you to come back to the church after your mother passed. Which, sorry for your loss, by the way.
Thank you.
In other words, you seem like a real troublemaker.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now I just want to point out the elder Mark Gottlieb, who informed me of that. He left the elder board, and I think he was one of the ones I
Yeah.
still to this day admire.
Yeah.
So there's been a change of leadership. So yeah,
Yeah.
real troublemaker.
Yeah. A real rebel rouser. Rabble rouser. People correct me on that one. Rabble rouser. Yeah. Anyway, so okay, got it. So I saw a few of your videos in the past. Well, why don't you take me through the story, because I don't know exactly the timelines of everything as well as you do, I'm sure. But I do remember seeing a video you produced about Michael Kelsey, Pastor Mike Kelsey, saying something about white people and torching them or something. So just normal stuff. But if you want to, if you can have the floor and just kind of take me through kind of what's happened and why is
Okay.
it that a longtime member, churchman, I'm joking that you're a troublemaker. Obviously not. We're now led to a point where, you can't attend worship anymore. So like, how did we get here?
Okay. If you could show my graph, I mean my screen. That was me in my younger days. I was sent off to pilot school by my employer. So before I got in creation science,
Brother, you haven't aged a bit. Out of younger days, you look the same.
oh, thank you. So let me just, okay. Let me just kind of maybe give a summary of everything. And let me
Sure.
point something out. I want to show my family here
Yeah.
because I'm going to talk just a little bit about Black Lives Matter. You could see there's my mother there. She's in the wheelchair. This is at my sister's wedding. She was widowed. And then her husband there was also lost his wife. They met late in life. He's African American. So I will touch on the Black Lives Matter thing because I don't want people accusing me of, being,
Sure.
racist or not.
Yeah.
Black lives do matter to me, but it's the movement I have problems with, and that's how I got in trouble. So maybe I could show if I have the graph here. This is the fundamental problem at McLean. This is kind of a nice timeline of history, just so you know everything that's going on. And I know this is a satire graph, but the numbers are relatively accurate. So you could see that 1960 the church was founded, and then it grew under Lon Solomon. But then you could see the effect. You could see what happened when David Platt became, and Mike Kelsey is like one of the senior pastors, and Wade Burnett. Okay, so this is meant to be provocative, but if I show, I worked hard at trying to summarize what the problem is at McLean. And to me, this says it's the change in management. So now I'll give the timeline. The timeline is, this is June 30th here. And I was still recovering from my mother's passing, and God bless her, there she is right there. And someone said, "Hey, Sal, can you help us? There's bad things happening at McLean." And I broke the story that this pastor, who's an associate pastor with David Platt, his name is Mike Kelsey. I got pictures of him with the Black Lives Matter movement. I was the one that broke the story because I got him on a public interview, but just no one noticed, saying it's difficult for me not to torch all white people, particularly white evangelicals and Christians.
Sure.
And shortly after he said that, he got promoted. And I said, I need to break this story. This is not right, that our congregational meetings are being shut down, and we cannot confront elders publicly based on 1 Timothy chapter 5 about these sort of activities. And I wanted to say, on what grounds do the elders promote a pastor that has that attitude toward his own congregation?
Right.
And what had happened was, this is September 19th. That's Pastor Wade Burnett with the known Black Lives Matter activist, right there in the lobby of McLean Bible Church. So
I'm sure he was rebuking him and telling him to, repent and believe.
Okay, so I can't go to this church. I will be under threat of arrest.
Right.
But
right.
Okay, but you see the sort of people and the sort of pastors that are welcome there, just open arms. All right.
Yeah.
and they can preach there. I can't even go there to take communion and
You
celebrate
know,
the
I, I,
Lord's Supper.
I just as a side note, I've heard a bunch of people kind of, defend Pastor Kelsey and saying, well, he was just using a figure of speech about, he wasn't really talking about torching them. He was talking about like, ripping them, yelling at them, stuff like that. And in all honesty, I don't understand how anyone would defend it that way, because it doesn't make it better. It's like whether he means yelling at them or doing violence to them, he's talking about just doing it to all of them because they're white. Like, it doesn't actually make it better if he meant it in a rhetorical way. So
Exactly.
I just figured I'd throw that out there, because I could see someone probably commenting on this video saying, well, he didn't really mean that. Well, it doesn't actually matter, because whether you want to yell at or hurt all white people, it's still pretty racist.
Yeah. So I have a white brother-in-law. He's not pictured here because he's sick, but I have white relatives, and we have
Sure.
someone here from Iran, and my cousins are half Chinese. So this isn't about you know that I don't like people of all races. This is the fact that I felt that was a very racist attitude, just to see someone white
Yes.
and you want to torch him. And I said, leadership, this is problematic, and it's expressing itself in the sermons. But I'll go on. What happened was that on June 30th of this year, we had that infamous vote. There was security there, and uh, I have a video of that. You played it on your channel.
I
We were
did. Yep.
we were threatened that with arrest and everything. Okay, that was June 30th. There was a tumultuous vote. Uh, we feel that that was a legitimate vote, but then they wanted to redo it because they lost the vote, and so we have July 18th here of this year. And they held a congregational meeting right in the middle of a worship service. Someone demanded a point of order. There he is right there. And you could see how that was handled. He was escorted out by, it's pictured there, only 3 armed security. There were
Yeah.
actually 5 at least. Okay, so then.
Another troublemaker. I could definitely tell.
All right, so then I had my turn to be escorted by armed security this past Sunday. So that's why I'm calling it McLean Banana Republic Church. I know that's such a mean thing to say, but I'm trying to circulate that meme now, because that's how it
Yeah.
feels like. Because we're not allowed to talk. It says in First Timothy, we can and should rebuke elders publicly before all. We are not given that chance. That is not biblical. And we keep being suppressed. The reason some of us have been tempted to shout out is saying this is not right. And so Jim Powers here, his name is well known now, especially thanks to you, AD, and the Lord. He spoke out. He said, this is constitutional for me to do a parliamentary move. And you did just a fabulous job of pointing out he was well within the spirit of parliamentary rules.
Sure.
So that's a little bit of the timeline. And if we can go on into some more details, and I will just let you kind of lead me
Yeah.
in what your interest is.
Yeah, well, so you mentioned, okay, so this video here that you have on the screen, this is him being escorted out by security guards, and anyone who hasn't seen that video, it's still on my channel. He was forcefully but politely insisting on a point of order. Like, it's not like he was making threats. It's not like he was screaming like a lunatic. It was a parliamentary kind of point of order that you would get at any business meeting in any organization. And so they didn't appreciate it. And so eventually he was escorted out. Now, Sal, you mentioned kind of in passing that you were also had your opportunity to be escorted out by armed security this past Sunday. So were you shouting and raving? I mean, you're obviously, I can tell you're a troublemaker, but like, what were you doing?
I walked into the sanctuary, and I was going to do a count of the number of people and gather evidence for future congregational meetings. So I wasn't getting in anyone's face. I politely sat down at about 9:10 a.m. Or 9:15 at the 9 a.m. service. A gentleman came up to me, very politely said, we'd like to have words with you. We'd like to speak to you, sir. And I said, sure. And I just insisted it be in a public place. And they said, sure. And they brought me before the sheriff. Uh, and they're right there in the lobby. They're utmost polite. And before I go any further, I would like to extend my gratitude and sympathy for the security at McLean. I know you guys are in a tough spot. You have leaderships that telling you to do things I know that bother your conscience. I don't take it personally, and I want to personally thank you all for your service in protecting the congregation. So that out of the way, I was treated with utmost respect, and they said, "Sir, we've received notice that that you've been trespassed. You're banned from the property. You'll have to leave, otherwise you'll be subject."
Sure.
And that was kind of the end of the matter. One of the security guys said, I explained to him, I'm here to do an independent count for congregational meetings because we have a drastic drop in attendance, and we
Sure.
have 5 campuses in McLean. This morning I was at the Loudon campus because that was one that we hadn't had very much information on as far as their attendance, and I was there to actually see what was going on. And so one of the security staff said, "I've seen your videos," and I just laughed. Sir, if I didn't thank you for watching it, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
And the sheriff said, "Hey, let me give you some information. If you come back to the property, McLean is going to contact me and we'll have to do something.
Yep.
Charges be filed. You might have to go to jail." He said, "I really don't want to do that. See if you could find another way to try to resolve this issue." And so I said, "There'll be no problem." And
Sure.
so here I
So
am
so
on
so
AD's channel.
so Sal, so okay, so and again, we don't have to harp on this too much, but I do actually want to ask a few questions here. So you've been banned from the property. Now have you been church disciplined? Like have you, the Matthew 18 process, confronted directly, confronted with a few people, brought it to the elders, brought it before the whole congregation? Like, has any of that happened as far as from your perspective,
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. And then some funny things are that on July 18th, even in the middle of this rancorous congregational meetings, a couple of the elders came up to me very politely and had a conversation. One of them said, you strike me as a fair man." But I will point out, right after I released the Kelsey video on July 16th, a couple days earlier, I had to scoot out of the sanctuary. Word got to me that they were looking for me. I found out later they were circulating my photos with the security staff, and the staff, I'm just like, "What's that about?" Okay, you don't have to do this to me and kind of let security feel like I'm the bad guy. So absolutely not. No one, I have not gotten any emails or anything. The only thing I got in addition to emails in my trespass order was I got a Federal Express letter, Federal Express package with a letter saying, "This letter is to officially notify you that you shall not go upon any of the listed properties. Failure to comply with this
Right.
request will result in the criminal charge of trespassing being
Right.
brought against you, which is in violation of code whatever.
Got
A
it.
copy of this letter has been sent to police agencies which are responsible for the above locations." And that's
So
all I've gotten. So
okay,
the funny thing
so
is,
what
I don't know if I'm still on the church member rolls, which would be
yeah,
really funny.
right. So okay, so for the record, you were escorted out on Sunday. You have a Federal Express. I'm sure it's a notarized letter that you're not allowed to be at any of the properties. But as far as you know, you've never been confronted or contacted because of a sin issue. Any of the steps of Matthew 18 have not been taken with you.
That is correct. And just to
That is
clarify, they
unbelievable,
obviously have my
Sal.
address. They obviously have my email because I got
Right.
that same letter in an email.
Right.
I've not gotten a letter from any of the elders or pastors. When I was there in the McLean lobbies at the various campuses,
Sure.
no one came up to me and said, "Hey, Sal, your behavior looks really suspicious."
Yeah.
And the grounds of the trespassing is based on your observed behavior at McLean Bible Church on multiple occasions. You are hereby notified that you're forbidden to go on all properties where McLean Bible Church holds
Sure.
meetings, including the following addresses.
S-
So that's
So
all I've
I'm
gotten.
sure. I'm sure you have some suspicions of what they mean by observed behavior, but do you know, have they told you what the observed behavior is?
No,
Okay, so we could probably guess, but you don't know. They haven't actually confronted you with that.
no.
Okay.
And I should point out, this happened um, last week, September 30th. I released a video that showed that graph
The
of,
graph with the attendance plummeting. Right.
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 And I said, I
Okay.
don't think they're going to be happy with this. So I don't know if that's correlated, but
Yep. Okay.
you know,
So
no
I'm gonna
one's
make some
told me.
Yeah, Sal, you don't have to agree with these comments or not, but I'm just gonna make some comments here because um uh, to anyone who watches my channel, you know it's focused on social justice. And, I've made the case that social justice is not biblical justice. In fact, I've made the case that it often overturns biblical justice. But there's a principle in the Bible when it talks about people who are elder candidates, um, and it says, they have to manage their household well, right? Because if they can't manage their household well, then obviously they're not going to be able to manage other things very well, including the church, or whatever. And oftentimes when people are thinking about who to elect for politics, they look at their family life, this was one knock, I think, that was a very fair knock on Donald Trump because, multiple times divorced, as far as I remember. And I remember somebody saying, I forget who said this, but like, if you'll betray your wife, I mean, you'll betray anybody, so that's a serious thing to consider. And so guys, like the Matthew 18 process, there are parts of the Bible that are complicated, but this is not one of them. It's very clear, if you have a problem with somebody, you have to talk to that person about the problem you have. And it doesn't matter if you're uncomfortable, doesn't matter if you don't like his face, doesn't matter if you think he's very dangerous looking, like Sal is obviously very dangerous looking. You look like, you'd bite someone's head off if they came in over to talk to you. But obviously not. But the point is, like, doesn't matter. Even if he did look like that, like, you have a duty to that person to go to him. And the next step is very clear. And the step after that is very clear. And when somebody's excommunicated from the church, the purpose of that is so that not only they will kind of see the error of their ways and repent, but also so that the congregation can see that and fear the Lord. And it certainly seems to me, and Sal, you don't have to agree or disagree, but it seems to me that whatever has happened here, whatever they think they're doing in their discipline, it's all happened in secret. So much so that you're not even aware of it.
Yes. And
You
we can
can't trust
speculate.
someone like this. Sorry, just one point. You can't trust someone who is so willing to just overturn simple things in God's law. You can't trust people like that to interpret the complicated, more difficult things in God's law. And so, anyway, just a side note. Sorry, Sal, to interrupt you there.
No, and I need to point something out to the rest of the audience. You mentioned President Trump. President Trump visited McLean Bible. We have a lot of people, the senators, congressmen, cabinet members, going to McLean Bible, including the vice president, president of the United States. I need to point something out, just, also partly because my reputation's being kind of trashed by McLean by this trespass order. You
Oh yeah,
briefly saw it
absolutely.
there. This is me and Sandy Pigeon on July 16th of this year. Sandy Pigeon is a retired Navy SEAL. We built a friendship. He came to my mother's funeral, by the way. He was on the security team, and he's led security teams when Donald Trump came to McLean Bible.
Mm-hmm.
If he knew there was something really wrong with me, he would have
Oh yeah,
let the security team there know. Now he left, not surprisingly, McLean Bible partly because he didn't, his wife didn't like what was going on, and he felt he should always worship the Lord wherever she is. And they went on to another
yeah,
excellent church. But I'm just pointing this out. It's not like I don't have people in the McLean that don't know that, they know that I'm not a bad guy. And it was
yeah,
one of their own, one of their top security guys. And I think it was provident that we built this friendship, because
yeah,
otherwise I'd just be vulnerable. McLean could say anything they want if I didn't have a witness like Sandy, and he's been on my YouTube channel, which, by the way, is Evidence and Reasons for the Christian Faith. You can Google it.
Absolutely.
By the way, I'm not going to be competing with you, AD. I teach a lot of molecular biology and physics on my channel. Really
Hey, man,
boring stuff, you know. So don't
I'm
worry
all
that you're
about it.
losing any viewers.
Good stuff. No, so yeah, and I think Sandy has commented on some of my videos. So God bless him and his wife as well. Yeah, definitely. And you know, at the end of the day, like my whole purpose in this is just this is an upside down way to run a church where you know, conceivably I could see maybe if someone was an imminent threat, you know, maybe you don't, you know, go through the steps of Matthew 18, you know, someone's coming in there threatening people, you know, wielding a knife or something. Yeah, you just got to tackle them. You don't go through Matthew 18. That's different. But in your case, there's nothing like that. Obviously, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, they don't appreciate the videos that you're doing. They feel like they're being undermined by you. That's my opinion. I haven't spoken to anyone over there, so I don't know. So in those situations, it's like there's no imminent threat. There's no, you know, reason to not do Matthew 18 there. There's no reason, because I have a feeling, Sal, that you're the kind of guy that if they were taking you through church discipline and they eventually excommunicated you, you probably wouldn't show up to church the next day. You know what I mean? Like you probably would respect that and move on.
And by the way, just for the record, they did ask me if I had any weapons. I said, no, sir, I don't. And I didn't. Except that, you know, there's a saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. And I did have a pen, and I was taking notes. I mean, that's about it, you know? And the security staff actually looked surprised. It's like, gee, you know, you're not quite the bad guy you're being made out to be or something. I mean, that's just my own perception.
I can't even imagine what it feels like to know that people were passing around your picture as if you were some kind of a terrorist or something. Like it's
and I'll tell you something else. There's another data point that's disturbing. Whenever I went, there are 5 campuses that are geographically separated by a lot of distance. And I was driving around visiting them. They were keeping track of me, and I found out they were keeping track of people that I talked to. Like Big Brother knew. And the reason it got back to me is they said they were approached by, one of them informed me he was approached by security. They said, we saw you with Sal out there in Prince William. And okay, so you're you know,
oh my,
and they were
gracious.
Yeah, this is like, okay, so you're keeping track. Are you keeping tabs on people, your own congregation? And
Sal, this reminds me. I don't know if you watch any TV, because you know, listen, you probably don't have time for it doing the kind of content you do. So, but I used to watch with my wife stuff on Scientology. It reminds me of that a little bit, where people are kind of tracked and followed, and if you're talking to the wrong people, you get, you know, hauled into the principal's office and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This is ridiculous.
This was creepy that they knew what campus I was on. You know, it seemed like red alerts were coming on whenever I visited.
So can I ask you a question? So,
sure.
You know, you were there on Sunday and you were going to count the people that were there. Why were you doing that? Why was that important to you?
I could probably, it's easier to show.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, first off, this is the Association of Management, because some people actually don't realize that we've lost a lot of congregation. One of the reasons is we went from 5 services at the Tyson's campus just down to 2. So people that just go, like, say, to the 9 a.m. and they're newcomers, they wouldn't realize the carnage. That's the first thing. The other thing is I needed to confirm for myself that we've really lost this many people.
Right.
So I was going to present this at one of the congregational meetings. Actually, recently, they tried to have one, but for a variety of reasons, they didn't. I was going to present it. And then we're getting this from Larry Cooper in our congregational meeting, September, quote unquote. It's debatable. It's very debatable whether it was a legitimate one, because it was held online. No way to establish quorum.
Right.
But, up here is Larry Cooper, and he's the chairman of the board of elders. So I'm going to try to answer your question here. He said there, I hope that you're as energized and as excited as I am about where we are. and he said, and where we're headed. I mean, I'm just like, so why am I doing this? Is I needed to gather evidence, and I was going to write. Actually, when I was driving on my way to Loudon, I said, I'm going to write the elder board. I said, guys, do you know that this is the state? What they're also doing is the solid lines are from their official congregational report, but they're including the online counts there of
Right.
people. What they're not doing is separating out the brick and mortar. The brick and mortar is down here.
Right.
So probably earlier in the history, this was really more or less brick and mortar.
Yeah.
And now we're going, we're inflating the numbers because of the online. And I'm like, this is a very serious situation. I think the numbers could be even as low as 3,200 now.
Yeah. Well,
And
so you care. So basically, you care for the same reasons that anyone would care about the numbers. So, I mean, there's issues as far as quorum. There's issues as far as leadership and funding and where that money's going, what the priorities are. Like basically, anytime anyone takes account of a church's numbers, there's reasons for, and those are the same reasons that you would care.
Okay, and there's a little bit more, and it ties to the financials.
Okay.
So this is our. Larry Cooper said also on September 30th, that is our elder board, consisting of Larry, David, Mike, Wade, the people in the picture, plus some more. He said, it's a high point. And I'm like, I mean, only if you kind of, maybe from your perspective, if you're kind of upside down, you think we're at a high point here. Okay, this is real satire. All right. So this is how I vent, because I don't scream and yell. This is kind of how I express myself.
Well, I get it. No, I get it. That's by anyone's definition, it's not a high point.
Okay, so these are pictures of the congregation. This is the Arlington campus meeting at Tyson's.
Just to give me some context, pre-COVID, I mean, what would this have looked like?
They're meeting at Tyson's because they're under construction at their actual Arlington. So
sure.
I actually don't know, but let's say we've pre-COVID, going back to the graph, it'd be about 4 times larger. Okay. 3 or 4 times larger.
Yeah.
And I need to point out, people say the pandemic. I said, well, why is it the churches around the area that are, by the way, getting a lot of ex-McLean? So we've had a lot of people that have left, obviously. They've gone to other churches. They're breaking records now in terms of their attendance. So even though that's, that is a data point, I have that countering data point.
That's right. Many churches grew during the pandemic.
Yes.
Right. And let me just say this too, just for anyone in my, church growth is not necessarily a sign of a healthy church. There's lots of unhealthy churches out there that have a lot of members. That's not what I think Sal is saying or what I'm saying, but there clearly is something to address, and the rhetoric and the speech doesn't match the reality clearly.
Yes, and that's it. It's like if you're going to be shepherd of the congregation, you tell them that you level with them where we really are.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't. I'm not calling that out yet. I'm just saying this is just not wise. So these, I use the color coding here partly to conceal their privacy, and also it helps me count. So each of the colors are groups of 10. So I get accurate counts when I have the photographs. That's the Arlington.
This is the mind of a scientist, by the way. I would never have thought to do that.
Oh, yeah. This is the Prince William campus. And of course, when I got there and I was counting here, I raised alarms. Just a carnage, because I also in witness said this used to be packed.
Yeah.
And you could see a lot of the empty spaces. And there's something really funny here. This is September 19th. Okay, this is like in the last few weeks. Do you see that sign there? It says overflow seating. And I was like, you guys, either you're trying to cover up the lack of attendance, or you're just delusional.
Right.
Because there's no way in the 9 and 11 a.m. service that there's enough, because I was counting. You weren't even at like 50% capacity at the 9 a.m. service. What's the deal here? And something really funny. We have 2 auditoriums. This is the Smith Center auditorium that hosts the Spanish service. I'm going to point out something funny. What they did is they told all the Spanish speaking people that day, that Sunday, they were coming in there to hear their service in Spanish. And they said, no, we have to close this down because we need it for overflow seating. And so I'm trying to diagram here, if you could see it, if you could see my mouse, there's that Smith Center here, and here's the main sanctuary. And so what they did is they said, let's shut this down so we have overflow seating. So they herded all the Spanish speaking congregants into the English service. So that's why I showed this little boy. He said, so let me get this straight. The Spanish speaking people have to go to the English speaking sanctuary because the English speaking sanctuary is already full. And when it's actually half empty. And
So
I'm like,
it certainly seems to an outsider that they brought them in to make it look fuller.
Full. Yes. Yes. And the excuse doesn't hold water. There's, again, this is photographic evidence of what's going on. And
I mean,
there's something financial here. We'll get to that. So go on.
Yeah, let's get to some of that. But it just, from an outsider's perspective, it just reeks of desperation. I mean, obviously, that excuse makes no sense, even if you think about it for 2 seconds. But like, that's what they came up with, and that's what you do when you're desperate. You come up with nonsense.
So now, probably kind of toward the end, this is what began, so we have the Black Lives Matter thing, which upset a lot of the congregation. We had the loss of numbers, and then the financials. So we have
Lives Matter really kicked off last year around June, July, right?
The what?
The Black Lives Matter stuff really kicked off last year around June, July.
May 17th, 2020.
Okay,
because
so
there was
May.
an infamous sermon everyone remembers. And a lot of people started submitting the resignations when Mike Kelsey preached on it and started teaching in Sunday schools.
Okay, so you remember the date like it's yesterday. So that's May.
I'm a numbers guy. If you didn't,
I picked that up. I picked that up. So that's the last time it was over 10K. So May.
Yeah, so you could see that the gradual drop. That was, if you could see it right here, this is May of last year, and you could see the gradual decline with COVID. I mean, we sustained numbers, but it just kept going down, down, down.
Well, and let's just also keep in mind too that COVID started, well, when people started really freaking out was March, if I'm not mistaken. So it looked like numbers in March and April kind of held for the most part.
Well, that was the Easter season, and we did have good advertising. So the graph that I showed is really May to May because
got it.
The Easter season kind of skews it a little bit. But I want to point out something that, we had the graph here. You could see that the peak point, that's 2014, and the low point is down here at 2021, I'm sorry. So the May revenue actually, it tends to be about the same year over year. And you can see it actually slightly increased. I said, how can you be sustaining 80% decline in attendance and you're reporting year revenue about the same? And that's when I got scared. And when Larry Cooper was saying, we're in great financial shape, I'm excited. I'm just like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? And I actually started to fear a little bit for my life.
Okay.
Something is really kind of like not on the up and up, and I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I could be getting a visit from Guido, the mafia enforcer or something.
Right. Right. Well,
so that's why I also went public. I said, okay, if any, I did say on my channel, if anything happens to me, I want this to be a matter of public record. Now, I'm not the only one who's noticed this. And so I said, what I was going to bring to the congregational meeting, I said, you got to level with us. At this rate, either the individuals are donating twice as much as they ever did for no reason apparent to me, or even up to 5 times as much to sustain this.
Yeah.
Who's the big donor?
Yeah.
What deals have you cut to make this possible? Are we succeeding?
Who's doing this? Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, we need to know. And I said, and they've been suppressing the congregational meeting. And I need to point something out. They haven't confirmed minutes, ratified them for like a year. I mean, it's been kind of scary.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm calling it a banana republic. But this is the one that really caught my eye. And so when I got recruited to try to help McLean after mom passed, I almost left the church, but I said, I feel God's calling me to go back. That was my sacred duty. And I said, I'll be there until they kick me out.
Yeah.
and
Hey, man, if
and
that's what God has for you, then you got to do
yeah,
it.
and the first thing that caught me, I said, what's the financial transparency? They said it's terrible. And I was asking for an hour. I said, I really don't like to go against the elders. And, I just want to go away quietly, but, tell me what's going on with the numbers. I'm a numbers guy. And this bothered me. So kind of graphically showing what's happening. See if I have it here. I'm just going to stretch this out. So what's happening is we had a crowded congregation 2014, and by 2021, the fall, it's emptying out. There's not a lot of enthusiasm, and yet we have the money either growing or kind of being the same. And I said, we need an explanation for that.
Yeah.
Maybe there's nothing illegal, but just let me point this out. Why would someone be donating to a church that's obviously mismanaged, that's losing its congregation?
Yes.
Why are you throwing,
appears to be,
on the order of maybe tens of millions of dollars? Why?
Listen. This is the thing. So like, even if you make the argument, well, a shrinking church doesn't mean it's dying. Okay. But from an outsider's perspective, it appears to be. So why would you be doing this without insisting on some kind of change in direction? Right.
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 It just, it's like the congregation's entitled to some answers. So let's say big donor decides I'm not going to help anymore.
Right.
Are we ready for that contingency? So let's say we don't know exactly why. Maybe he was just happened to be generous that year.
Right.
Is it reasonable to ask, is he going to keep flipping the bill for us? And if he is, it's like, okay, well,
but Sal, these are not like weird questions that you shouldn't be asking. Like, I've been on the board of, I serve as the president of the board of a pregnancy clinic. And at our meetings, this is the kind of stuff we discuss. It's like, okay, so we grew in revenue this year. Well, why did we? Oh, well, we had this person who just gave us a special grant. And so now we need to prepare that so we don't necessarily ruin our budget for next year, counting on that might not come. Like, these are conversations that are basic to have running any kind of an organization. It's not like you're asking questions that you shouldn't be asking.
Exactly.
Right?
Right. So you asked why I was at church. I said I needed to know what the numbers really are, because the gravity, I needed to assess the vital signs of the church in terms of a purely business perspective. We could talk about the spiritual stuff too a little bit, maybe some other time, but I said, just from the business perspective, this is very disconcerting. And as a concerned member of a church I've been a part of on and off for 38 years, this is something important to me, and I think the congregation needs to hear. Why isn't this being discussed? Why are we relegated to the internet to be doing this? And kind of the irony, I wouldn't be on your show if they didn't kick me out. If they just let me just keep counting, this probably would have been silence.
So this is what always happens, and I don't think that people that run organizations on iron fists and authority, they don't get this effect. And on the internet, we call it the Streisand effect. The more you try to hide something, the less success you're going to have. So let me ask this question to you, because I think I know what I think is probably the answer. Somebody asked, why are the people that attending so quiet about everything? I think I know probably why, but do you have any extra insight in there?
The ones who have, we're not able to get word out in congregational meetings, but the word is being passed kind of word of mouth.
Yeah.
So in a sense, we're not totally quiet, but we're not having the mic. We don't have the mic and the floor, but we do have kind of personal connections, and a lot of people have left.
Yep. Yeah. Well, what I was going to say was that's probably one thing. A lot of people just end up leaving. So that's one reason. But I think, Sal, kind of what's happening to you, in my opinion, again, I have no extra insight here. It's intended to try to scare people into being silent.
Oh, so, yes.
Like the fact that they know who you're talking to and who you met with and who you said hello to in the parking lot. Like, they wouldn't be keeping track of that stuff unless they plan to use it. And they probably have used that information to their benefit many times. That's just so weird. But the thing is, it has a chilling effect on people. So number one, I don't think people are silent. I think many of the people that aren't probably have left at this point. And the ones that continue to not be, they're going to try to scare into silence.
And that's I can't say that's absolutely their strategy, but it sure feels that way.
Yeah. That's what it looks like from an outsider. Yeah.
And so some people said, I don't want to speak up because they might scrub me from the voter rolls, like they were scrubbing people. They scrubbed hundreds of people from the voter rolls before a congregational vote. And they said, well, we don't want to out ourselves. So that's another way that they can be suppressed. And this is really my final slide.
Okay.
I'm not going to get into moral theological issues. Those are, for a church, those are really the most important. Okay. But I'm just going to say this from a purely business, and this is a more polite way of kind of like calling out the elders, more diplomatic. So this is like a restaurant that is, customers have been going to, and they've signed up for memberships, or whatever. And then the new management comes in, they change the menu. Some people like it, large numbers didn't. They just leave.
Right.
And then specifically with McLean, it was more like a mega mall.
Right.
They had so many little ministries, like paintball ministries, skateboard ministry, ski ministry, single moms, all those got canceled. So a lot of what made people very attracted to the church is they could meet people with similar values and likes and dislikes and tastes. It's just a great place to hang out. Now they have destroyed all those ministries. They want, one product fits all kind of approach, or a few products. And that's just not going over very well. So that's kind of like the most kind of more of the polite way I could cite some things. And I talked about the Black Lives Matter movement. They're people that are very concerned about the finances. And then more minor, some people make it about the SBC affiliation or whatever. And, not a lot of, outsiders don't really get that, because there are a lot of people that love the Southern Baptist Church from like 40 years ago, that it had a great reputation. It's like, well, it's not quite that way today. So before we close, I really want to thank you for giving me a chance to tell my story. And thank you for all you've done for McLean Bible Church. You've been the voice that we have sought that we can't get in our own church. And I just want to say thanks.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. I think, listen, at the end of the day, like, to me, what you just mentioned sort of about the menu and the different ministries that used to exist that maybe don't exist anymore, whatever, like all of that, these are all legitimate discussions to have. If you don't like that stuff, then you can change it. Like, I'm not saying that that's off the table. To me, though, the lack of transparency, the lack of any kind of lines of communications that you're talking about here. And this is, I'm not a member, so this is all allegations as far as I know, but you've lived it. So that's, to me, is the most troubling thing. Like, you start asking too many questions and you get followed home. That's what it seems like. It's like what is that about? Like, that doesn't make any sense. The refusal to engage in any kind of responsible church discipline. That's troubling to me. Just the whole idea of, refusing to keep, to approve minutes and things like that. These are all things that, like, they seem like small things, but why not do those things? Why not? If that's what you've agreed to do them, right? That's what we should be doing. I don't know. That to me it makes you really wonder what in the world is actually going on here. Again, I think that if you want to change the ministry approach, let's have that discussion and let's do it if it makes sense. Yeah. These are theological points that we should be talking about, right? But when it doesn't go your way, you can't then call in your goons to, like, hey, secretly follow that guy home. Like, that kind of doesn't make any sense.
It is creepy, and
yeah.
People are wondering why I'm in a good mood after being treated that way. Actually, it's like, Lord, I'm getting really tired. I'm getting battle fatigue, just, getting all the mean looks. And when they trespassed me out, I said, praise the Lord. I don't have to come back here for a while.
Yeah. And let me
I
say
mean, it
this.
was
This
just
is
such a negative environment.
yeah. Let me
Um,
say this too, and Sal, this is not your word, so you don't have to take any of the grief for this. But I know you expressed a lot of gratitude for the security guards there doing their jobs and stuff like that. And I've actually had some interaction with McLean Security as well. I had a back and forth with Pastor Joe Carter at one point, and they were super polite, super nice, super thorough. You know, talked gospel with me even. It was great. Like I had a great interaction with those guys. But from me, and this is from me, not Sal, eventually, if you're not comfortable doing something or you don't think it's right what they're doing, you eventually have to not do it. And probably that time has passed. So don't do things that you're morally you have an issue with just because your pastor or someone said they don't have the authority to get you to do something that you're not supposed to be doing. So just stop. That's from me. But anyway. All right,
well,
Sal. Well, anything
there's one data point I want to. I'm sorry.
go for it. Go for it.
McLean has been trying to plant SBC churches. They boast a 37 to 50, and like in the last, ever since David Platt came on board, maybe a little bit before that. Um, and I'm like, can you try to at least set your own house in order before you try to plant churches in the image of
Yeah.
McLean? This is another thing that just
Yeah.
like, I don't get it, guys. You know,
Yeah.
how can you
Maybe.
lose 80% of your congregation and you're trying
Yeah.
to plant more churches?
Yeah.
Just like,
Maybe figure out how to do church discipline before you go and export that to
yeah,
somewhere else. Yeah. I get it, man. Well, Sal, thank you so much.
thank
We'll
you.
stop it there. And, obviously, guys, if you have questions, Sal's got a YouTube channel. It's called Evidence and Reasons. Is that right?
Yes, Evidence and Reasons. You can just Google it. Evidence and
Yeah.
Reasons. Just say Evidence Reasons YouTube channel.
Yep.
Oh, and I have an after show on
Okay.
my channel. So as soon as we end, I'm going to start a stream,
Yeah.
and we don't have open mics because we've gotten some, people showing up and just posting
Yeah.
pictures that they shouldn't. Okay.
Right. Right.
But I would be happy to entertain questions and discussions. I'll interact with people in the chat. I hope someone will join me, either Emery. He
Yeah.
knows who I am. Emery, if you want to join, you can. And I invited Dr. Sandy Pigeon. So we might have a panel. If not, it's going to be a short show.
Yeah, go subscribe and ask him questions because I was going to say if you have any questions, reach out to him. I'm sure he'll answer them. And if you have any molecular biology questions, I'm
Oh
sure
yeah,
he'd be glad to answer those as well.
yeah, organic chemistry, math, physics, population genetics. I mean, okay, so like I said, AD, you don't have to worry about any competition for me. Before I forget, I wanted to say your old nemesis, Rulon or someone,
Ruslan, yeah.
Ruslan, and he was just talking about McLean. Like, dude,
Oh yeah, that was
I don't
yeah.
think you quite know what's going on. I mean, you're just kind of repeating the leadership talking points. And so
Yeah,
I'm
well,
glad to have a
it's
chance to set Ruslan a little bit, like give him some information he hasn't heard
yeah.
before.
Well, I'll give him a lot of credit because Ruslan he's a very polarizing figure on my channel. But when I presented the evidence that I got, I think from you and one other person about what had actually happened, he was pretty gracious about being wrong. And we were texting back and forth, and he's like, "Man, like it's just so crazy. Like, why would they lie?" Like, and he admitted it. I think he even edited his video. I don't think he like issued any kind of retraction, but he edited his video where he kind of made these misstatements. So in his defense, he actually was pretty gracious about being wrong there.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm sorry then, Ruslan. But
No, it's
thank you
okay.
for,
It's okay. It's I'm sure
and
I'm
if you're
sure he would
watching
appreciate.
Ruslan, I hope I'm happy to come on your channel too and tell my side of
Oh
things.
yeah,
So
man. No, hey,
so
I'll text him in just a minute.
alrighty, sounds
All
great.
right, man. Well,
And
God bless
I
you,
know you've
Sal.
been sick, AD,
Oh
and thank
yeah.
you for
Well,
taking the time
I feel
to
fine.
give our congregation a voice.
Yeah, no, I feel fine. So it's a pleasure to do this anyway. But God bless you, and maybe
God bless you.
I'll go subscribe. I'm already subscribed. Maybe I'll go log in the live stream right now. So have a good live stream.
Alrighty,
All right.
take
Hope you
care.
guys
God
found this
bless you.
helpful. God bless.
All right, bye bye.